After spending many hours thinking about this, pondering this, researching this, I've come to a conclusion that I think is really important and quite valuable, and I want to share it with you. It's about music production. Welcome to The Producer Place. My name is Nick Rollo. I'm a producer and mixing engineer from Australia. I've got millions of streams to my name with dozens and dozens of artists that I've worked with as a producer or mixing engineer. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, but I like to think I know some stuff, so hopefully you find this valuable. I have a few freebies for you. They're linked below. One is a free vocal mixing cheat sheet. You can go check that out. There's also a course that's quite cheap that's associated with that. Free Studio One presets, blah, blah, blah. It's all linked below. Let's get into the video. So I'm not entirely sure what I've called this video, but basically the premise is this: less is more. I think one of the main things that amateur producers do, and this may or may not be you, is over-clutter, over-complicate, add too much stuff. We have this idea that more equals better. And to some extent, like, it can be true. And, you know, these rules are just rules that apply sometimes. I think this rule is pretty good. It doesn't matter though, like, you can do what you want, so I'm not telling you how to live your life, I'm just saying from observation. More is often not better. There's a point, right? You don't just want a song that has a bass guitar in it, you want bass and drums and keys and vocals. But if you start adding too much, it gets cluttered. And I feel like as a beginning producer or a songwriter or recording engineer, whatever you are, artist, we have this idea that we're like writing a song and we've got the chords down and vocals and we add drums and then we add bass and then we add guitars and, you know, we've got a picture and it doesn't feel full enough. So what do? We reach for more instruments. We add extra synths, we add extra percussion, more vocal layers, we add extra melodies, counter melodies. We add all of this stuff to make it feel full, and it kind of does feel full in a way to us. But then to the listener, it's confusing. There's too much happening. It's dense. It's not full, it's dense. And I think there's a difference there. Now, I've been told this by a few different producers, engineers, people I've worked with. You know, they've told me these things kind of loosely, like, oh, you know, you want space, like whatever they'll say. And I'll kind of think about it and go, yeah, that's true. But then I'll go back to making super dense productions. At some point in the last, I want to say, year, I sat down and I listened to all of my favorite songs. Well, not all of my favorite songs, but a lot of them. And I listened to top 50 on Spotify, and I listened to radio, and I listened to just other songs, and I just kept listening, and I kept kind of thinking about it. And the startling thing is that pretty much all of them are so simple. There's often not that much happening. And from memory, like, again, this rule is just like a broad rule, but I'm pretty sure when I kind of initially deep dived, I counted that pretty much the maximum amount of parts in a section would be about 5 or 6. So drums, bass, vocals. There'd be keys or chords of some form. There'd be a lead line potentially, maybe some ambience. There's a few things that can be interchanged here, but it would be pretty consistently just drums, bass, vocals. Those were pretty much always there, and say a chorus. And then you'd have like guitars, and sometimes there'd be 2 guitars playing the same thing, panned. I kind of consider that one instrument because it's sort of doing the same thing. Then you'd have, ambience, whether that's something ethereal or just like kind of a texture in the background, and then some kind of instrumental part. Go have a listen. I've yet to find many examples of songs that have done really well that I have not heard this kind of rule apply. There's just not much going on, because when you do have minimal parts, it kind of, one, forces you to make really good parts. It's really easy to hide behind lots of parts, and as a result of that, you know, we kind of have a lot of average parts. I'm guilty. I do this a lot. I have to really force myself to stop. And 2, by having less, it kind of allows you to actually create a more full sounding mix, because you can just turn stuff up. If you have 20 parts, it's hard to mix stuff really loud. If you've only got 5, you know, each part has a really nice space in the sort of sonic spectrum. And I know, it doesn't always apply. Sometimes a massive wall of sound is amazing, and having a really full mix full of 100 parts is awesome. But in the pop world, at least, and definitely hip hop, less is more. Go for less, go for better. So I'll quickly show you the song that I'm working on, just to kind of give an example. I don't know what genre you'd consider this, doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to play kind of the part, and before I play it, we'll have a look at what's here. I've got this synth that's playing an arpeggio. I have it sending to an FX that's like a shimmer, so kind of like a shimmer reverb, but not quite. So that's sort of these two kind of are creating a texture. I've got a bass, I've got kick, snare, and hat. I've got this lead part, which is sort of like a high, sorry lead synth, and piano. And some of them have effects, like the piano has reverb, and it's not mixed, but it feels full. It's not finished, it's not perfect, but it feels pretty good and it's pretty minimal. All the parts are quite loud. You don't need more. Like, instead of adding an extra part, think about adding ear candy instead. So, I could add another part to this. I could add an acoustic guitar, let's say, and maybe I will. This is only what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. I could add a 6th part if I want. And this is kind of like a rule that I apply to myself as much as possible. Can I make this sound good in 5 parts or 4 parts or 6 parts? If you can, the parts are good and the song is good. I could add an acoustic guitar to run the whole length of this song, or I could add just like, I could dive in to this point right here and say like, just here, right at the end of this bar, I add a little acoustic diddle. And I think that stuff's fine because it's only fleeting. It's there for a moment. It doesn't really overclutter the arrangement in general. It's just a thing that happens on the side. You're chugging along and doo. So using ear candy and little moments instead of constant parts, I think just kind of creates more interesting arrangements. I hope this has been insightful and helpful because I really live by this and I think about it a lot, and it's something that I'm constantly trying to improve on because I think my bass inclination, and probably yours as well, I'm imagining, is to just add more stuff. But try less and try better. You can always add more later. I mean, you can add more and remove it, but try the opposite for once, Try adding less, and if you need more at the end, add more. But focus on quality. Focus on interesting, good parts. I think as far as I'm aware that just amateur production feels overcluttered, so it's a pretty easy technique to simplify things and it instantly levels you up, in my opinion. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, hit like and leave a comment below, and I'll catch you next video. Goodbye.